I am Riley Chow, and I'm here with Kevin Jacobsen and Luca Giliberti, and we are here to talk about Best Limited Series and Best TV Movie for the Emmys this year. Now, the Emmys recently changed a whole bunch of rules in the middle of the night, and they actually do not really apply here because in the Limited Series category, they're usually about 35 submissions, TV Movie maybe about 25. That's well within the range of 20 to 80 that will trigger 5 nominee categories. So in the Prediction Center, you can predict 5 nominees, and you will be able to do that until nominations are announced. And actually this year, with the rule changes, what we're actually going to be seeing in the limited and movie field is essentially 5 nominees across the board. Previously, there were different numbers in acting, and cinematography only had 4 nominees. Now, every category that is specific to the movie and limited field will have 5 nominees, except for the supporting races. So, Kevin, you said that you thought that you were going to be special by predicting Unorthodox. So I want to ask you about that. But first of all, in the limited series category, Watchmen, Mrs. America, and Unbelievable, are those entirely locked, or does anyone have even the slightest reservation?
I mean, I would say that Watchmen and Mrs. America are at the very least as close to a lock as you could get, just because of how buzzy they were, of course. But Unbelievable, I imagine, will be right up there. It aired a little bit ago, so I'm always uncertain with that. But it was one of the most acclaimed limited series of the year and has so many great stars in it as well. So I would say that those are the 3. The question is whether it will be filled out, the rest of it, with those kinds of high profile, big star vehicle types of shows for the rest of the field, or if it will go to some of the more under the radar sort of indie things that people weren't necessarily predicting from very early on, but organically managed to build critical buzz and a lot of commercial success as well. And that is where I am going with Unorthodox, just as kind of that underdog show that people discovered in these last 4 months with everyone stuck at home. That was one of those shows that I just remember a lot of people saying they were catching up on and loving. And so that is sort of just what I'm going with there. And my only other slot there is Little Fires Everywhere, just because it has the Reese factor, it has the Hulu factor, and I've also interviewed many of the people there. And so I might have a slight bias, but I think that is just one of those shows that has a lot of the things that the Emmys like to reward, which is it's a show that's primarily centered on women, which we've seen more and more of now in the last 5 years or so, and is dealing with race and privilege and has a Big Little Lies flavor to it, you could say. So that is the reason for my predictions.
Wow. Okay. So we've gone through all of Kevin's picks. So this will be a quick slugfest. Luca, what are your thoughts on the category?
So I definitely agree with Kevin. I think Mrs. America and Watchmen are surefire locks. I don't see how they miss at all, for the reasons he already mentioned. I also think Unbelievable is a complete lock. I get that it aired a long time ago. It aired last September, so it's really been a long time. But as Kevin said, it was one of the most acclaimed shows last year. It got 4 Golden Globe nominations, 4 Critics' Choice nominations, a SAG nominations. It got a few other guilds, including PGA and WGA. And I just think it's a show that was very liked and is also very accessible despite the heavy subject matter. I don't see how it misses, especially since so many shows were forced to drop out because of the current pandemic, because they weren't able to finish filming. Then we had other shows now move to the fall or move to some time later in the year. So I think that really did clear up the field, which is why these last 2 spots are so difficult to predict. I completely see a path for both Unorthodox and Little Fires Everywhere. Little Fires was something that aired at the perfect moment. And Unorthodox also dropped at the right moment and is only 4 episodes, so I could definitely see it getting in. I still have Hollywood in fourth place because even though it didn't get the greatest reviews, I feel like it could benefit from the current situation in the United States, where people might view this as comfort television. And it is Ryan Murphy after all. It's big, it's expensive, it's what the TV Academy likes. I don't feel confident in it at all, but when the field is so wide open, I'm just going to bet on someone who's been able to get so many minis or limited series into this race. And then in fifth, I just put in Defending Jacob this morning, which is Apple TV Plus's limited series. And I sort of compare this one to The Alienist in 2018, which was another accessible, crime thriller, whatever you want to call it. In this case, it's a whodunit mystery, and it's very accessible. It's very it's very easily watched, even though the subject matter obviously is dark. And it also aired weekly, so there was some buzz for a few weeks, and not just like a Netflix show is dropped and there's buzz for a week and then it's gone. So that's why I have it in here. I don't think it'll do well necessarily in other categories, but I don't think you have to do well in other categories to get in here. The Alienist only got into limited series and tech categories, not into any acting, writing, or directing races. So that's my thought process here.
Yeah, I think that's very valid. It's interesting what you say about, on Netflix kind of dropping and then being forgotten after a week. Unbelievable, I think, has really persisted, it turns out.
Yeah.
I was taken by the recent nominations from BAFTA and also the Peabody Award. So it still seems to be very much in the minds of people who are voting on various awards. And that's actually largely why I do not have Hollywood. Hollywood dropped on May 1st, but I feel like it almost came out too early, just because we're in such a long season where voting is not until July this time. And also, people are at home and they're watching tons of TV that they normally wouldn't have time for. So May 1st feels like even further away. And then also another thing that's different this year is that, because everybody's home, people are watching things when they actually come out in general. So, if a show comes out May 1st in other years, maybe the voters don't get around to it on June 15th. Whereas I feel like this year, people kind of got to it on, May 3rd, let's say. So I'm not sure that one has the legs to sustain itself with the reception that it's gotten. On the other hand, I do have Little Fires Everywhere because I feel like that one, it's kind of unclear, I feel like, when it came out. I couldn't tell you the release date off the top of my head. It just kind of seems like it's been chugging along without ever actually peaking. It feels like people have been discovering it. So for a lot of voters, I feel like it'll cash in on that recency bias. It's also very topical. But I do have concerns about whether the way it approaches it is a bit too light for the steak eater branches, especially.
Right. I mean, that's or go ahead, Kevin.
No, I think how it is handled, the approach there could go either way for certain people. I think it has trended mostly positive, but I don't know. Maybe it is too female centric, and also in a field that is primarily, we have Watchmen, Mrs. America, Unbelievable, and Unorthodox, all centering women. That's some that doesn't always work.
Yeah, you got to throw them a Defending Jacob like Luca's doing.
Yes.
And it's also there's a lot of melodrama there. There's some tiny bit of soapiness.
It is soapy.
And it's unapologetically soapy. So, but that it's not something the TV Academy has embraced of late. That was my decision because I was deciding between Defending Jacob and Little Fires, and then it sort of came down to that, because Defending Jacob is your typical, mystery, whodunit, and it just seems like something the Academy has rewarded before. Whereas Little Fires, I wouldn't be able to find a show that is comparable to Little Fires that has been able to sneak into limited series lately.
But what about the obvious one of Big Little Lies?
Yes, but Big Little Lies, I feel like I don't know if it was stylistically or maybe it was just the overall story. I felt like it felt more heightened, I guess, than Little Fires did, but it's probably not that bad a comparison. I do still see differences between the two shows, however, especially with how they tackled the subject matters, obviously. But this is one of the strangest limited series races we've had recently. I feel like almost like even though 2018's was also very strange. I feel like this year we just have these three front runners, and anything what gets in afterwards is a big question mark. There's so many different possibilities.
Yeah, and we haven't even mentioned Normal People, which is another show that obviously peaked at the right time while people were watching it and really became a hit, especially with younger generations. I don't know how much that's going to translate to any Emmy love, but possibly in an acting category. But I don't know about limited series.
Right.
Yeah, it's very tricky in this category. I mean, you don't know, whether passion is going to come through, whether people are checking out stuff like Normal People that they wouldn't normally watch because of the longer season, because there's more time to watch TV. I have Unorthodox on kind of similar grounds in that it's not a show that I would expect the Academy to watch normally, but I feel like there's been such good word of mouth that by this point I feel like everyone actually has seen it.
Right. That's a very good point. I mean, I guess even though we've sort of said it, the field is wide open after those first three shows that we mentioned. There's still a lot of shows in contention. We also have, for example, The Loudest Voice, which aired last year, I believe, in the summer on Showtime. It was able to get Golden Globe nominations and Critics' Choice nominations for Best Limited Series, as well as for Russell Crowe. So it's also subject matter that a lot of people are familiar with, obviously. And we also had Bombshell earlier this year on the movie side tackle the same issue. That's something I wouldn't be surprised to see sneak in, but my fear with that one is that it aired such a long time ago. I don't know how much passion it really had, and there are a few others, but I'm sure some of you will mention some of them.
There is The Plot Against America, which is another one, but David Simon shows have traditionally done very, very poorly with Emmys, even when people try to say that, like, hey, here comes Show Me a Hero, Oscar Isaac, and then look what happens. I wouldn't trust the Academy to go for a David Simon show at this point. And I know there were pockets of people who watched it and really loved The Plot Against America, but again, it just seems like once again it was too small of an audience.
Right. And we also have I Know This Much Is True, which I had in for a very long time, but I feel like it's too depressing, it's too dark, it's too heavy. It's actually still airing at the moment. I also don't sense that much buzz.
Well, it finished, actually.
Oh, it finished already. Then, well, it just finished recently, and I didn't sense that much buzz for it. And I feel like that's a result of its themes and its what the subject matter it tackled. I just feel like it's not something people were necessarily in the mood for at the moment, but it's definitely something I'll still keep in mind, because there's a lot of talent attached, and as we said, it's very wide open. Anything can happen, really.
Actually, I think over the course of this slugfest, I'm feeling a little less like anything can happen. I feel like we have a pretty solid top 8, but it's just those first 3 that I feel confident in, and then any of the next 5 in my books can get in. And let me say in no uncertain terms that Hollywood can be nominated.
Right.
Yeah. Of course. And I think
I
that is
guess
a show that can benefit from, not to invoke a fragile award season, but something like a Green Book, Bohemian Rhapsody sort of thing, where the
exactly.
critics and people on Twitter even really did not care for it. But the industry is like, what do you mean? This is just like a great escapist fare that is
Exactly.
so entertaining and has all these great stars, so glitzy. And there was just as many people that, venturing outside of the critic bubble really did fall for Hollywood in a hard way. So
I completely agree with that.
All right, let's jump over to TV movie. So on Gold Derby, the frontrunners are El Camino, Bad Education, American Son, Unbreakable Kimmy Schmidt, and Patsy and Loretta. And right off the bat, I want to address Patsy and Loretta because I feel like that is one of those predictions that got into the prediction center very early on, and then it just snowballed from there. I think if you're going to predict a Lifetime movie, and Lifetime, they do get in variably in this category, I would suggest going with the Clark sisters, which is
Right.
only predicted by 92 people right now in the Gold Derby Prediction Center compared to Patsy and Loretta, which has almost 1,500. The Clark sisters aired in the spring, for one thing, so all things being equal, you should always go with a spring show over a fall show. And it was an actual hit. It got 4 million viewers for a TV movie on a Saturday. It was the most watched show on all of cable for the day. It has better reviews than Patsy and Loretta. It is produced by Queen Latifah. She's gotten in a couple times very recently in this category. Stars Anjanou Ellis, who was nominated in her same category last year. Yeah, nothing against Lifetime, but I feel like I don't see why Gold Derby's predicting one Lifetime movie over this other one that's better positioned.
I totally agree. And that is why I have it in my predictions. I guess I'm one of those 92 people. But yeah, I really do strongly believe that that is being so underestimated. I think it has 100 to 1 odds still, which is ridiculous to me. Like you said, it was so watched at the time, and it was the biggest TV movie for Lifetime in 4 years.
Oh, well, yeah.
And
I didn't know that.
Wow.
yeah. So I even remember just when it aired, there were so many people live tweeting it and were so excited about it. And yeah, I definitely think that is a strong possibility that people are not anticipating.
Yeah, I think it's something I'm definitely going to put in right after this. It's on my radar for the longest time, but I did when it aired and people watched it. There were a lot of people talking about it. What I have or will Troop Zero, which is from Amazon, and it stars Allison Janney and Viola Davis and McKenna Grace, so these bigger names, and it's something that was well received. So I thought, since I had assumed that people had seen it, that it could have been able to get this nomination, but I will replace it with the Clark sisters after this. It makes more sense, especially for the TV Academy. And I actually think it's interesting that we have a few movies to talk about in this race this year. I mean, we've all admitted that the TV movie race is very barren most of the time, but I think it will be very interesting without Black Mirror in contention this year, since it won the last 3 times. So that will make things very interesting.
I mean, there is a slight chance that there are actually not enough submissions and we will only get 4 nominees.
Right.
It's just so hard to tell with all of these streaming movies that we have.
Yes.
Because those streaming movies, they don't necessarily get, a ton of press coverage, but it does seem like people actually discover them and watch them. Like, that's kind of why I'm going with Togo for my 5th slot, starring Willem Dafoe, because I think it has like 28,000 ratings on IMDb. But I think people, they got Disney Plus and, it was there. Willem Dafoe, why not? And it seems that people actually like this movie too. Like, it has an 8 rating on IMDb. It got a couple Guild nominations from the WGA and the MPSC. And both of those are panel-based votes, which is normally a detriment, I guess, because it doesn't suggest any kind of widespread popularity. But this category is so uncertain that I think it bodes well that people who have actually seen this movie enjoy it.
Right. And something I have renewed confidence in is actually American Son. It's something I had taken out for a while because it was not very well reviewed. It was, I believe, in the high 30s on Metacritic. But I feel like it's just become so incredibly relevant at the moment. Kerry Washington is really promoting it as much as she can. And it's also based on the play. So I just feel like it definitely has a very good chance of getting in, all things considered. It's something I'd probably place in fourth place at best, but I definitely see it getting in.
Yeah, we all definitely have Bad Education and the Breaking Bad movie. Do we feel any uncertainty about Unbreakable Kimmy Schmidt?
A little bit, yeah, because that is a show that was kind of embraced at the beginning when it was first airing, got in people like Jane Krakowski, but then it just gradually dissipated over time. And it is an interactive special. Obviously, Bandersnatch did very well, but it's still a little bit of an uncertain thing for me. But it will be interesting to see which of these shows, because we have, or movies in this case, where we have Unbreakable Kimmy Schmidt and Breaking Bad and Transparent,
Right.
all competing with movies in TV movie, all productions that did very well at the Emmys at a certain point. And it will be interesting to see if that will last in 2020. I mean, even looking at El Camino, I think it's solidly in, but I don't know that it really had a big cultural moment that I maybe might have expected it to. And so, I think if we're thinking about a winner, there seems to be only one option, which is Bad Education, but I could be wrong.
Yeah, I feel like... Go ahead, Riley.
Okay, sure. I'll just say this whole field is tricky because, like, just going back to limited series, how we're kind of only confident in the top three. Like, for example, in the directing category, where I've made my predictions, I have 3 episodes of Watchmen and 2 episodes of Mrs. America. So I feel like a lot of these other program nominees might not get a ton of nominations.
Right. I completely agree. I for me, it's too early to tell which one of El Camino and Bad Education, which one is going to win. I would agree with Kevin at the moment. I think Bad Education is probably the safest bet for the win, just because I feel like people really actually took to the movie. We could see it break into acting categories, and the same for El Camino, of course. But I feel like we'll talk about him still, but I feel like Hugh Jackman might be safer than Aaron Paul, for instance. But it's something I won't be able to decide on until after I've seen the nominations. But I don't see a scenario in which either one misses. And what you were saying about these shows or these old Emmy favorites sort of competing here as movies, I think that could work to their advantage because voters are familiar with these shows. They're familiar with Transparent and Unbreakable Kimmy Schmidt and Breaking Bad. So if they're just checking it off because they watched the actual show when it was on, I feel like that could help them. I think the Unbreakable Kimmy Schmidt special was something that was actually liked. I'm not sure that the Transparent musical was all that well received, which is why I don't have it in my lineup. But I think Unbreakable Kimmy Schmidt is actually in it pretty comfortably, I'd say. I wouldn't say it's a lock, but if you look at this race, I think it's pretty easy to single that one out and to put it in your predictions just because, for the reason that I already mentioned.
Yeah, the only other one that I'm considering is Heartstrings on Netflix.
Right.
That one's interesting because that one is actually, an anthology series, just like Black Mirror. And Netflix, they petitioned the Academy. They said, please, can we enter Black Mirror, even though you created this rule so that Black Mirror wouldn't be allowed to compete? And the Academy said, sure, Black Mirror can go in movie. And then Netflix said, can we submit Heartstrings as well? And they said, okay, sure, why not? And then all the other networks, they came for, the Academy and got Black Mirror kicked out of this category. It would be ironic that, if Heartstrings got nominated because they forgot to kind of get upset about how it was able to enter this category. Heartstrings is entering, I believe, its finale called These Old Bones. It's another Dolly Parton entry, and Dolly Parton was nominated a few years ago in this category for another one of her movies.
Yeah.
So, people like Dolly Parton.
They do.
It's on Netflix. A lot of people might have watched it. It should be considered, I would say.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I would say in a field that there's not a lot of familiar faces sort of thing, they will just go to the familiar, especially because there's no other real movies that have that kind of buzz outside of Bad Education and American Son.